Hi, this is Valerie Guillaume, and I'm here to report to the public something that is of urgent public concern. It's in regards to the Salvation Army Cawthra Road shelter. The massive corruption, abuse of resident, and cover up that is going on there, endangering the lives of residents. The recent deaths, there were two deaths within the last week, two diabetic residents who died within 72 hours of each other, one on August 30 and the other one on September 2nd. This is September 5th, and I have to make this video because they're also endangering my safety there. And I want to talk about my situation, but I also want to talk about the massive corruption and cover up. And I want to expose some people who are directly involved in this, such as TANISHA Lewis, who is the Director of Housing with the province that's supposed to oversee Peel region, the regional municipality of Peel, which owns and manages, is the service manager for that shelter that is operated by the Salvation Army on behalf of the region of Peel. So I want to go into it because they are trying to, as you know, cause me to leave the shelter. And so they're not happy that this matter is progressing in the courts. Okay, they're trying to use alternative ways to get me to leave, whether it include endangering my safety and things like that, which is what they're doing. So they have a number of practices that they carry on there, which I also want to expose to the public today because it's against public interest, because what they're doing is violating the residents' rights. Okay, so what they've done in the last 2 days is to get some, and they do this frequently. Okay, but what they did, it's almost as if they quote unquote borrow these psychiatric people from the hospital and have them come to the shelter, and they will put them in your room. Okay, and for the sole purpose of be disruptive and to cause you harm. Okay, so that's what they've done to me. They brought this severely mentally deranged person and put her in the bed above mine. Okay, and this woman would have outbursts during the night and screaming on top of her lungs. Now, you may ask yourself, how is that possible? Well, because the sleeping areas on the second floor and the offices are on the first floor, so they don't hear anything that's going on up there. So I went there to them this morning and said, look, I'm not able to sleep because of the disruptive behavior of this resident. And one of the staff, I believe her name is Giovanni or something, I will get her name and write it below in this video. Quote, this is a shelter, you're not supposed to be comfortable. But this is more than discomfort. This is actually aggravating my medical condition, because when I was at court last week, the judge even asked me what my medical conditions were, and I told him. And the lawyer, Jennifer Bruce, was present, so she's aware of it. They're all part of this conspiracy to cause me harm. So what this is, in a sense, is reprisal, because under normal circumstances, no one can even endure a situation like that. So for someone who is not well physically, to really have them endure something like that where they cannot get any sleep at all, and this person is disruptive, making outbursts. If she was in a hospital, she would be sedated. That's how bad it is. She was screaming at the top of her lung like blood curdling screaming, and actually someone else even went and got the staff downstairs because it was so loud, and they did nothing. They said, oh, I said to them, this person is having a psychotic situation. You need to get them some help. You need to get them to the hospital or call someone. They actually didn't do anything. When I was leaving this morning, they were all laughing. In my opinion, laughing at the situation. But I want to go into more details about this because there's been two deaths in less than a week. within days of each other. Within one was on Saturday and the other one was on Tuesday, and I happen to know both of those residents. Okay, there was a guy that died on Saturday. He's diabetic. You know, he had one of his legs amputated. He died in the dining room, and let me tell you, they do not have any. I did not see any defibrillator. I'm sorry, hard for me to pronounce that. Nor do I believe that they do any kind of life-saving attempt on him, such as CPR. Okay, so this gentleman, he's so friendly with everyone. He's always, how are you doing? God bless you. And they left him to die. Basically, he died in the dining area, and they left his body there for hours. For hours. And so that's happened on Saturday. Couple of days later, this young lady, who I also know at the shelter, she's type 1 diabetic, so she's insulin dependent diabetic. I'm suspecting that she probably went into a diabetic coma, okay? Because the food there is terrible. For snack, they give you all these sweet things, and I'm also diabetic, and I also have all of these other medical conditions, but the food there is so terrible that even when you ask for special diet, there is no fresh fruits. There, you hardly see any fresh fruit. Never. There's no protein for breakfast. All they have is coffee and tea and bread to make toast and cereal, dry cereal. No protein like egg or anything like that. Okay, so then we're not being and no fruits. Okay, so we're not being fed properly, and that is why for people who have these situation like a diabetes and things like that, it can be a problem for them at the shelter. And I really do believe that that was a contributing factor to the 2 recent deaths at the Cawthra Road shelter in Mississauga. But that's just one of the things. Okay, the other thing is that the practice that they have of putting people who have severe psychiatric issues into the rooms with people who have to go about their daily business. Okay, for me, my medical condition requires that I get sleep, because if I don't get sleep, it could be really detrimental to my health. Okay, and they purposely did that. They purposely brought this person into the room so that that would cause a disruption to my sleep and even cause me harm in other ways, which is what they've done. Okay, this is being done by Melody Watson, who is the executive director, Blessing ANYANWU, who is the director of the Cawthra Road shelter, and now I'm also implicating Christianne Commons and TANISHA Lewis. TANISHA Lewis, as I said earlier on in this video, I contacted her this morning and I wrote urgent, meaning that I wanted her to contact the region, the municipality, okay, below the province, because she works for the province, and to contact AILEEN, BAIRD, or someone in the housing division in regards to the situation at Cawthra Road, because this woman, who is the supervisor for this shelter in Cawthra Road, will deny everything, okay? Christianne Commons will deny everything because she's on the side of the staff. So I'm bringing this to the attention of the public because I may look okay, but I am not. I have some really serious medical condition, and for them to put someone in the room who is so mentally disturbed and having all of these outbursts and disruptive behavior when she needs to be sedated or to be treated for her condition, no, they're throwing it on other people, okay? And this is not just about convenience. This is about my physical health, not even to mention my mental, emotional state that is causing, because it's causing me severe stress and preventing me from sleeping, and also aggravating my pre-existing medical condition, which they already know about, okay? So I wanted to mention this because I even contacted Imagine Canada, which is supposed to be a watchdog for Salvation Army. I spoke with someone there named Danielle Houston, and she left me, my conversation with her earlier on today was that she was going to contact the Salvation Army itself, because they know who to contact in the Salvation Army, because they oversee the Salvation Army. okay, to make sure that it does what it's supposed to be doing as a charity. And yet you have all of these deaths. When I was at the medical shelter last year, there were 3 deaths, almost 4. And let me tell you, I think I even mentioned that in my previous video, where one man was unconscious, unresponsive. By his roommate saw him in that condition, went to the staff, and the staff says, we can't come now because we're making sandwiches for the next day. And because it's a medical shelter, the man was able to go to the nursing station, and the nurses was 2 nurses was able to grab their equipment and revive the person. Unfortunately, at the Cawthra Road shelter, they don't have any such equipment. So maybe those 2 persons who died on the last few days could have been saved if they had the training, CPR training, or the defibrillator that could revive in case somebody's heart stopped beating, and revive them until the paramedics come. These people, because they're dealing with homeless people, they have a hands-off approach. Like, they will not, you're untouchable, so they would not even think of performing CPR if you become unconscious and things like that. And I really do believe that that contributed to the death of those 2 residents that may not have deserved to die, really, because they were fine, just a few hours earlier, talking with residents, and their condition, just got worse. Like, for the young lady, as I said, I don't know, I'm not a doctor, but because she's insulin dependent and type 1 diabetes, and she died in the morning, so I'm thinking that it was a diabetic coma, okay, because these things can happen, right? And the staff do not care. You have staff who are abusive. Since we're talking about staff who are abusive, let me mention what is happening at the Cawthra Road shelter. There is a staff there by the name of Sheila Osei, Osei, and she's being accused allegedly of physically assaulting a resident at the Cawthra Road shelter. And you know what she got? Just 6 months probation and anger management. And not only that, they elevated her to housing worker. So this is the reward you get for being corrupt. Residents are being physically abused, emotionally and mentally abused by the staff. Their one staff named Alan is extremely abusive, extremely disrespectful also to the resident, do not care. He was one of those staff that was laughing at the situation this morning involving the residents who was having the psychotic breakdown, and how that was affecting me. And because he doesn't like me or whatever the case is, he found it, to be amusing. That's what I believe was happening. So this is a concern. This should be a public concern, because this is a charity. It gets public funding, it gets government funding, it gets funding from corporate sponsors. And I hope they are listening to this, because there shouldn't be any more deaths. Last year there were 3 deaths there. Okay. Another thing, there's also mismanagement, misappropriation of funds, because City Council provide to the region of Peel upfront funding for people who are in the shelter or who are homeless on the street, to help them, which is called the housing rental housing subsidy, as I had mentioned in my previous video. For me, they cut it off because they didn't want me to get the housing, okay? But there are others there that could have received it, and they don't, because what they've been doing is that, because the region pays for a occupied bed, and what they've been doing is that when people sleep out for days on end and don't come back, they still have those beds as occupied. Okay, I had one staff mention to me, when I had a couple of roommates who did that, well, we can only speak from today. I'm like, okay, they were gone for days. Okay, I'm even aware of situation where a particular resident were gone for 2 weeks and come back into the same room and her stuff was still there. So there's a vast discrepancy about how they treat different residents. So the housing subsidy, they get up front, and the people are still in the shelter and are not getting it. So where did that money go? Where did that money go that they got from City Council? And I'm talking the regional, I'm talking the housing, Peel Housing Corporation, because it is a corporation, right? And so where did that money go? because it didn't go towards providing housing for the other residents of the shelter. Another thing I want to mention is that those residents are purposely being kept in the shelter. There's one resident that I'm aware of with the initial C, and she got her discharge paper in March, and 6 months later she's still in the shelter, and she has no intention of leaving. They have no intention of making her leave, okay? And she just walk around the property. Another thing I want to mention is the sharp increase in pregnancy among the young residents in the shelter for other residents. So there's a lot of corruption going on. So this organization has failed the residents there, failed the people there, because if you're people who have a homelessness issue in their lives, and then they're coming to the shelter and getting pregnant in the shelter, the Cawthra Road shelter, because they don't discourage that. When you go there, you see people hanging out with their boyfriends, and they don't go look for housing and things like that, and no one push them to look for housing. Because the longer they're there, they get funding for it. And the Salvation Army monopolize their contract with the region of Peel and exclude everyone else from getting that contract. Yet, the services that they provide is not up to par. Okay, the food does not meet the Kennedy guidelines, food guidelines, in most cases, because for breakfast, it's, as I just mentioned, bread and coffee and tea. No protein, French fries, greasy food for lunch, and I'm never there for lunch. I'm never there. Okay, I leave in the morning and I come back. They will tell you, staff resident will tell you, I'm never there because I'm so busy and occupied with what I need to do in my own life. But there are people there that they purposely keep there for a very, very long time. So do the math. If you're keeping people there who you could have helped to get housing with the housing subsidy, that's also preventing a new set of people from coming there. Okay, and so this is the corruption, because the longer they keep people there, the more they can get money from city council. And I'm talking the Peel housing. Okay, so there's a massive corruption going on. There's a massive misappropriation of funds. There's a massive fraud going on because we don't see where this fund is going. The people are still there. They're not getting the housing. They're not getting this rental housing subsidy so that they can move on to get housing. With me, they purposely blocked me, which is a factor to me getting the housing. Because obviously with my physical condition, I wouldn't want to be in that situation. But because of this long court process I am going through with them, the fact that they blocked me from getting the housing subsidy, this has caused my delay there. So what they've done now is trying to find alternative way to get me out of the shelter, and they do not care if they cause me physical harm in doing that, and that's what they've been doing. So Blessing ANYANWU is the director of that shelter. He has personally lied on me, falsely accused me. This is something that I've seen him do with other people. I recently had a friend who we kicked out of the shelter, and they don't have any problem kicking people out on the street. They do that all the time. So the problem is that the funders need to sit up and take notice when we make this kind of a public appeal. Because I'm making this public appeal today because there's no way that they can continue with their attacks against me, which is endangering my safety. Okay, and I have seen where they do that, where they will bring people who have severe mental illness. I've seen that. I think it was even a few weeks ago, someone in another room, this woman was so deranged, you could hear her shouting all the way. You wouldn't even hear that on a psychiatric ward, okay, without doctors immediately intervening. Yet, because we are homeless, they just let us force us to live with that condition, which is what I'm facing right now. But even a month ago, there was someone who was so severely deranged, she was talking and shouting, and I spoke with her roommate, and the poor woman didn't know what to do. And I think she had some kind of discussion with the staff downstairs, the deranged person, and they asked her to leave because of her disruptive behavior. But she was causing such a disturbance. And there are even now people there beside the one that is in my room whose behavior is like, so where do our rights come in and theirs come in, right? So it's not, for me, for this situation that I'm facing here, this person is supposed to allegedly be coming from the hospital. The only thing that she has on is the clothes on her back. There was no luggage to say, oh, she was discharged, so now she's homeless. To me, homeless is like if you lose your home and you're on the street, or if you're living on the street, or if you lost your home because of your landlord situation. But if you're in a hospital, you actually have a place to stay. You have a place to stay. You're homeless if you're discharged from the hospital and have nowhere to go. But like I said, these people will show up and then they mysteriously disappear in 1 or 2 days. How did you find them homeless? Did you find them homes in such a short time, in a couple of days, or did you bring them from the hospital to carry out a particular agenda against a particular resident? That's what I believe. Another thing that they did this past week was to bring someone, before this one came 2 days ago, the one that was there few days, she was discharged on Tuesday, I believe, and they brought this one Tuesday night. So she was a schizophrenic person. And she was, and I heard this from her directly because they put her right above my head. And she had to spend 3 months in jail because she severely hurt someone, because the voice in her head told her, go and hurt this person. So she hurt this person. And so I know that she takes meds, right? And they have to bring the meds and she has to take the meds. And so I'm thinking there's a court order for her to take the medication for her schizophrenia so she doesn't hurt someone. And that's the person that they came and put over my head, okay? And because I made some phone calls recently, they removed her. But this person was violent before with someone else and was before the criminal courts. And so that was the situation. They exposed me to and everybody else, okay? I'm not saying that she's a bad person. I'm saying that when she's off her meds, she can cause serious injury to someone, and that's what happened. This similar situation to what I was aware of at this medical shelter last year, when there was another guy, similar situation, and he actually just walked up to someone on the street and attempted to kill them. And I asked him personally, I'm like, why did you do that? He says, well, the voice told me that if I didn't kill this person, then he's going to kill my family. And like, so what happened? When he was off his med for a few days at that shelter, he tried to burn the computer room down. He set it ablaze. And so they know this happened. And so he had to go. So they're taking all of these serious mental issues as if it's nothing, such as schizophrenia, when you know, they hear voices and the voices telling them to harm someone. And then they put those people in the room with you. And a lot of times you don't know their medical history, that they have this condition, and that, you know, they can act upon it. If the voice tells them to harm you, they will harm you, right? So we're vulnerable in that case because the shelter does not care. The shelter management do not care. And they don't take the precaution to make sure that we're safe, which is the situation I'm facing right now, because I believe this was deliberately done. One of the staff that I was talking to this morning, early this morning, like maybe 5 a.m., because this woman was really acting disruptive. And I won't mention his name, but he was saying, like, sometimes when the police drop these mental patients, people at the shelter, and it doesn't work out, the police would take them to the hospital. And I'm thinking, hospital? So why was the police even dropping them at the shelter? And if they're really homeless, where's all their things to show that they're homeless? And why do they disappear in a couple of days, go back to the hospital? Like, what exactly is going on here? So there's a lot of things going on at the Cawthra shelter that the public need to know about. I know that there was one incident in July where there were allegations against a male staff that also involved a female resident that they covered up. Okay, so I don't even, as far as I know, this is just allegation, but I believe that the female resident was discharged to cover up that incident, and the allegation against the male staff there. And for privacy purposes, I'm not going to mention the male staff name, but a lot of these things going on. So the residents there are facing emotional abuse, physical abuse, possibly even sexual abuse, whatever the case is. These are very serious issues for me to make this video right now, and plus the recent deaths. Just a few days ago, 2 diabetic residents died at the Cawthra Road shelter. And it's being treated as if nothing. Things just continue as it, and no one is sitting up and asking, why are there so many deaths at the shelter? Why are there so many deaths at the Cawthra Road shelter? How is that in the public's best interest, that people, when they go there, their safety and their lives are jeopardized, and in many cases they end up dead? Why is the current manager still operating as the director and the executive director of that shelter? Blessing ANYANWU and Melody Watson. This is the purpose of this video, because they're endangering my safety, because I have this legal thing going and I'm going through the legal route. They don't want to see this happen. So in my view, this is a reprisal. This is a reprisal against me. That's their modus operandi. They're trying to look for alternative ways, because if this kind of aggravation continues, it will seriously cause me physical harm. And they know that. The lawyer Jennifer Bruce knows that, because even the judge last week asked me, what are your medical conditions? And I told him what they were, and they were very serious. And when I spoke to Jennifer, I said, I don't want to contact Christianne Commons directly because you're representing her and Peel, so I'm contacting you. Could you advise her of the situation at the shelter? He goes, oh, well, it's not a legal situation. I'm like, this is a safety issue. It's my safety that's in danger, because I need to be able to, I didn't even mention security of tenant. I need to feel safe. I need to be safe. I need to at least be able to get some sleep. And that's not possible when you have somebody who's screaming above your head and having these psychotic outbursts so loud that people outside of that room can hear it. So this is a form of abuse. And I'm making an appeal to the funders, such as Walmart and Sobeys and Loblaws and all of these corporate funders who fund the Salvation Army. They are abusing our rights, and you need to step in and stop funding this organization, because we're not benefiting from the Salvation Army. There's too much abuse of power. There's too much staff who do not have proper training and who abuse the residents' rights. And there's just a general lack of concern for the rights of the resident and for the safety of the residents. And they want to look at me as a threat to them. Why? Because they don't want anyone looking over their shoulder, because I'm the only resident there who knows sufficiently about the law to stand up for my rights there. The only one. And even the other residents commend me on that, because they don't know what to do. They don't know who to call. At least with the previous management, with Peel Region, under Lisa Middleton and Mariana, they used to at least listen to the complaints coming out from the shelter, not Christianne Commons. So there's a massive corruption, because I contacted TANISHA Lewis, and TANISHA Lewis is under Rob FLACK, who's the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing. And as far as I'm concerned, he's corrupt, because he's supposed to look into the corruption that's going on below him. And he's not doing that. So he gives them free range to do anything. That goes against public interest, because when you have people now living in a homeless shelter and who are dying with such frequency, or whose lives, if they have pre-existing medical condition that being seriously jeopardized by the actions of the staff, you need to step in and you need to do some serious investigation on behalf of the public for the safety of these homeless residents. But this is not happening. And so I know I have to come and make this video to expose what's happening. So this is Valerie Guillaume in regards to the corruption, the massive corruption that's going on at the Cawthra Road shelter, the Salvation Army shelters, basically, whether it's the Dundas shelter, which is also the medical shelter, and the Cawthra Road shelter. It needs to stop. It needs to stop, and it needs to stop now. People need to sit up and take notice. We're not being fed properly. If you're diabetic, you're forced to eat whatever they give you, even though you're supposed to have special diabetic diets. It's hardly different from the regular crappy food that they serve there, okay? And I'm sure that contributed to those 2 diabetic residents who recently died a few days ago. And me, myself, who's diabetic, and they also putting me through this. Not just my diabetes, my high blood pressure, and some of the other serious conditions that I have. This is severely being aggravated by the condition that they have now put me through with this resident who should have been hospitalized, who should be hospitalized and be treated, at least to sedate her, to calm her down. Because she's having outbursts, but she's like, she needs medical attention. And they're not giving that to her. They threw her in the room on top of me. And now it's aggravating me and harming me. And so now I have to come out and expose it. And I did speak with someone today from Imagine Canada. Like I said earlier on, they're supposed to be a watchdog over the Salvation Army organization. And I spoke with Danielle Houston, and she was supposed to get back to me today after speaking to Melody Watson and all of these other people that she knows within the Salvation Organization. So I'm not letting her off the hook, because she also has a legal duty to me, a fiduciary duty to me. Aside from the fact that she has this obligation in regards to the Salvation Army's actions as an organization. So I'm going to keep you up to date in regards to the situation, because they need to remove this person, preferably get her the medical help that she needs, and to stop carrying on that practice of using people who are so severely mentally disturbed to carry out their attacks against residents of the shelter, which is what they're doing to me, and which is what I've seen them do to other people, other residents in the shelter. So this is Valerie Guillaume exposing the corruption and abuse that's going on at the Cawthra Road shelter. Do not fund the Salvation Army because of that. Think about the 2 recent deaths within the last few days that most likely could have been prevented. Think about my situation that they're endangering currently, and all of the other residents that they're endangering also with their actions at that shelter. And you should not be supporting them. You should not be funding them.